All right. Welcome to Lives of the Saints. Welcome to Grail Country. I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to be doing St. Herman of Alaska. St. Herman has a longer story. So we thought we had done him. I think Corey mentioned it last week.
Yeah,
And,
Anyway,
and I think
he
Corey
was asking about it.
Didn't Corey think that maybe I got this wrong, but I had the feeling Corey thought his Saint Seraphim icon was St. Herman.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And we were all like, "Oh, that's Saint Seraphim," and he was like,
It is?
It's like, if there's a bear, it's Saint Seraphim.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, what was I going to say about that? Oh yeah.
Well, he had asked if we had done it, and I thought we had because we had it in our show notes, but we didn't actually get to him.
Yeah.
Because the others took too long.
Right.
So now we'll talk about St. Herman of Alaska.
Yeah, and he's got an amazing story. He's one of the first saints that I ever learned about. Because I got taken in as a catechumen at a church called All Saints of Alaska. There's a lot of those around these parts.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
And yeah, I was very impressed. I remember reading his story. So I guess we'll get started, Jeremy.
Okay. Sounds good. One second. Okay. Are you there?
I don't see it here.
Oh, there we go. No, sorry. 1 sec. I'm getting it. Here it comes. There we go.
All right. Okay. I'm going to shut my camera off and I'll be listening.
Okay. I'll be reading. And this will be longer, so settle in, buckle up, everybody. Get your your beverage of choice, and comfy chair.
Everybody can bubble up.
Yeah, buckle up so you don't fall out of your chair, because this is a pretty beautiful story.
It is. Yeah. Is there an icon in here? In this?
No, I don't have an icon of him, unfortunately. I'll show one after. We'll show one after.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Sounds good.
Saint Herman of Alaska. Oh, and by the way, also ahead of time, I apologize for the pronunciation. I'll do my best. Please forgive me.
I think you
Saint Herman of what's that?
I said I think you do really well reading these, actually.
Well, thank you. I definitely enjoy it, so I'm glad it comes across. Saint Herman of Alaska, the first American saint, was the first to bring orthodoxy to this continent. He came to America as a young monk in 1794 as part of the original Russian Orthodox mission to Alaska. He lived there until his repose, and for more than 4 decades taught the natives by word and example. With his own severe asceticism a secret, he ministered to both physical and spiritual needs of the people, and his memory is preserved, fresh and personal, among their descendants to this day. Ironically, however, he is unknown to so many other Americans. By his prayers, may we also truly receive the gospel he brought and follow the way that he taught. In 1793, an ecclesiastical mission was composed in Valais Monastery and sent to preach the word of God to the natives of northwestern America, who 10 years before had come under Russian rule. Among the members of this mission was the monk Herman, the future elder of Spruce Island. After their departure from Valais Monastery, the missionaries informed their brethren in Christ concerning their activities. Although these letters probably continued throughout the stay of the Valais monks in America, they were not all preserved in the monastery archives. Thus, the Valais Monastery knew the labors and the fate of the individual brethren primarily from the writings of Mr. Sturza. These writings described the general progress of the preaching of the missionaries in the Russian-American territory, especially major events in the lives of these preachers, but lacked information concerning the monk Herman. The information about Father Herman was brought to Valum only in 1864 by a pilgrim. This pilgrim had lived some 10 years in America as a self-employed businessman and personally knew the closest disciple of Father Herman. It is the account of this disciple, Gerasim Ivanova Ziryanov, that was given to the abbot of Valum Monastery. The abbot was moved by the desire to receive more detailed information concerning the elder and to confirm the existing information. In that same year, 1864, he wrote inquiries to Hierarch Innocent, Archbishop of Kamchatka, and the Aleutians, to Bishop Peter, who had previously resided in New Arkhangelsk and was a vicar of the Kamchatka diocese, and to the disciple of monk Herman, Gerasim Ziryanov. In 1865, while these inquiries were in transit, the abbot of Valum Monastery received a letter from Simeon Ivanovich Yanovsky in Kaluga. Mr. Yanovsky explained in this letter that he personally knew the former monk of Valum Monastery, the esteemed holy man, and the great ascetic. He preserved two of his letters, quote, as a treasure from the holy elder, whose memory is holy to him, unquote, and offered to provide these letters to the abbot, as well as some other interesting information concerning the life of the elder. A correspondence began, and information concerning the elder was acquired. The letters were, quote, written from the heart with an intent of making it better and more truthful, unquote. It became evident that the man who provided this, S.I. Yanovsky, was, from 1817 to 1821, the main governor of all Russian-American colonies, and that now, according to his expression, he was a, quote, a sick old man of 77 at the side of his grave, and who knows, maybe the Lord had prolonged his life in order that he might pass along the information about the life of the holy elder, unquote. In 1867, further answers were received in reply to the letters of the abbot of Valum, Abbot Damascene. Bishop Innocent confirmed the reality of his miraculous deliverance from drowning through the prayerful intercession of Father Herman, which had been reported by the previously mentioned pilgrim. Bishop Peter wrote Abbot Damascene, quote, I do not know whether the Kodiak Creole Gerasim Ziryanov will send you any information about Father Herman, but I have, on my part, commissioned a Kodiak priest and a Kodiak citizen, Konstantin Larionov, to write all that he knows or has heard from others about Father Herman. I collected what I could and am hereby sending it to you. Thus, reliable information on the life of Father Herman was collected in Valum. This unexpected collection of information occurred exactly 30 years after the death of the elder, who had prophesied in precisely that amount of time people would remember him, as if hearing his testament to his beloved spiritual relatives, the inhabitants of his beloved Valum. We will now attempt, on the basis of these sources, to depict the events of his life as a memorial of our Blessed Father. Monk Herman came from a merchant class family in the town of Serpukhov in the Moscow diocese. We do not know what he was called before his monastic tonsure, nor do we know what his last name was. From his very young years, he had shown a great zeal for living a pious way of life, and became a monk 16 years after his birth. At first, he entered the Holy Trinity Sturgis Hermitage, located on a Finnish bay on the Peterskov Road, about 12 miles from Petersburg. At that time, St. Sergius Hermitage was attached to St. Sergius Lavra, near Moscow, and was governed by superiors sent from the Lavra. It is most likely that Father Herman, a native of the Moscow territory, had visited Moscow and made pilgrimages to St. Sergius Moscow Lavra. There he would have had occasion to find out about a holy branch of the Holy Lavra, Holy Trinity, St. Sergius Petersburg Hermitage. At St. Sergius Hermitage, incidentally, a carbuncle appeared on the right side of Father Herman's neck, under his beard. That's basically an abscess. It's a bacterial infection. The pain was horrible, The swelling grew rapidly and disfigured his whole face. It was very difficult for him to swallow, and there was an intolerable smell. In such a dangerous condition, expecting to die, Father Herman did not turn to an earthly physician, but locking himself in his cell, with warm prayer and tears, he turned to the icon of the heavenly Queen, begging her intercession for his healing. He prayed the whole night, when with a wet towel he wiped the face of the Immaculate Theotokos and tied the towel around the swelling on his neck. Continuing with tearful prayer until, in exhaustion, he fell asleep on the floor and dreamed that he was healed by the Most Holy Virgin. In the morning, he awakened and stood up, and to his great amazement, he found himself completely healed. The swelling had dispersed without breaking, leaving only a small lump as a small reminder of the miracle. The doctors who were told about this healing did not believe, insisting that the carbuncle must have been cut out or had broken by itself. But the words of the physicians were the words of the weakness and the inexperience of man in the face of the grace of God, overcoming the order of nature. Such incidents humble man's mind under the mighty hand of God's mercy. Father Herman lived at St. Sergius Hermitage for some 5 or 6 years. Then he moved to Valam Monastery, which is situated on the archipelago of the majestic islands amid the waters of Ladoga Lake. With his whole soul, he came to love Valam Monastery, its unforgettable abbot, the great elder Nazarius, and all its brethren. Your paternal kindness to my lowliness, he wrote later to Abbot Nazarius from America, quote, will not be erased from my heart, neither the terrible, impenetrable Siberian winds, nor its dark forests, nor will the great rivers wash away the memory, neither will rough seas extinguish these feelings. For in my mind I imagine my beloved Valam and look always at it across the great ocean, unquote. In his letters, he addresses Elder Nazarius as most holy, my beloved Batiushka, and all of the Valam brethren he called beloved and most cherished. He called his deserted Spruce Island, the place of his dwelling in America, New Valam, and, as is apparent, he was always in contact with his spiritual homeland. As late as 1823, 30 years into his stay in America, he wrote letters to Father Nazarius' successor, Abbot Innocent. Here is what was said concerning the life of Father Herman on Valam by his contemporary, who was also tonsured by Abbot Nazarius and was the future abbot of Valam, Father Barlaam. Father Herman went through various obediences and was always ready for any good work. He was, among other things, sent to the city of Sertobol to supervise the marble quarry there. The brethren loved Father Herman and would daily wait impatiently for his return from Sertobol to the monastery. Having tested the zeal of the young ascetic, the wise elder Father Nazarius blessed him to go and live alone in the desert. This desert was located in a dense forest about a mile's distance from the monastery, and it has until now retained the name Hermanova, later known as Herman's Field. On feast days, Father Herman would come from his desert to the monastery. During Vespers, he would standing in the kleros, he would sing in a pleasant tenor voice the refrain of the canon, "Sweetest Jesus, save us sinners. O most holy Theotokos, save us." And the tears would pour out of his eyes like water out of a bucket. In the second half of the last century, the boundaries of Holy Russia on the north were being enlarged with the activity of Russian scouts and pioneers. The Aleutian Islands were discovered. The Aleutian are a chain of islands that stretch from the eastern border of Kamchatka to the western shore of Northern America. Having discovered these islands, it was found there was a holy need for the evangelical enlightenment of the native inhabitants there. Metropolitan Gabriel, with the blessings of the Synod, entrusted Elder Nazarius with the holy task of selecting capable men from the Valam brethren. 10 men were chosen, and one of their number was Father Herman. In 1794, the chosen men left Valaam Monastery for their appointed destination. The evangelizers quickly spread the evangelical light with holy zeal among these newest sons of Russia. Several thousands of people accepted Christianity. A school was founded to educate the newly baptized children. A church was built where the missionaries lived. But by the unfathomable ways of God, the general success of the mission was not long standing. After 5 years of greatly profitable activity, the head of the mission and his whole entourage were drowned. The head of the mission was Archimandrite Yoasaph, who had been raised to the rank of a bishop. Before him, the zealous hieromonk Juvenali had been granted the crown of martyrdom. The others, one after another, left the mission. Finally, only Father Herman remained. Grace was given to him to labor longer than all his brothers in enlightening the Aleuts. We mentioned before that the place where Father Herman lived in America was Spruce Island, called by him New Valaam. This island is separated from Kodiak Island by a strait that is 2 miles wide. A wooden monastery is located on Kodiak for the placement of members of the mission, and a large wooden church built in the name of Christ's resurrection. Spruce Island in itself is not large and is all covered with forest. A small river runs from the middle of the island and empties into the sea. Father Herman chose this picturesque island by himself as a place for his seclusion. He dug a cave in the ground there with his hands and spent his first whole summer in it. By winter's onset, the Russian-American company built a cell for him near his cave. He lived in this cell until his death and asked that the cave be his grave on repose. Not far from the cell, there was constructed a wooden chapel and a little wooden house for his school and for visitors. This was the place of great ascetic labors by Father Herman over the next 4 decades of his life. In the garden, he himself dug the beds, planted potatoes, cabbage, and other vegetables. He had a basket to carry sea cabbage, or kelp, from the shore in order to fertilize the earth. It was so big that people said it would be hard for one man to lift it by himself. Father Herman, however, to the amazement of all, would carry it loaded with kelp without any outside help for long distances. One winter's night, his disciple, Yerasim, accidentally saw him in the woods and walking barefoot with such a huge log that it would hardly be possible for 4 men to carry. Thus labored the elder. All he did to provide food, clothing, and books for his orphans was filled with immeasurable toil. His clothing was the same winter and summer. He did not wear a shirt. Instead, he wore a form of deerskin shirt without sleeves, which for more than 8 years he would not take off and could not change. Consequently, all the fur wore off and it became soiled. In addition, he wore his clothes, his cassock, his faded and patched mantle, and his klobuk, his monk's hat. He walked everywhere in this clothing in all types of weather, in rain, snow, winter storms, and in severe frost. His bed was a medium-sized bench, covered with deerskins whose fur had worn out with time. For his pillow he had 2 bricks, which were hidden under the deerskins, and were thus not noticeable to visitors. He had no blanket. A wooden board, which he would lay on his stove, replaced it. Father Herman called this board his blanket, and willed to have his dead body covered with it. It was fully his size. When I visited the cell of Father Herman, stated Konstantin Larionov, I, the sinful one, sat on his bed, and I consider it the height of my happiness. When Father Herman was a guest among the company's personnel, he would talk on soul-saving matters and would sit up until past midnight. He would not stay the night, though. No matter what the weather was like, he would always return to his desert hermitage. If for some reason he was compelled to spend the night away from his cell, they would always find his bed had not been slept in, so Elder had not slept after all. The same thing would happen in his desert hermitage. There he would spend the night in conversation, showing his complete disdain for rest. The elder ate very little. When visiting a guest, he would barely taste the food set before him and would go without dinner. In his cell, a very small portion of fish and some vegetables made up his meals. His body, worn out by labor, fasting, and vigils, was weighed down by 15-pound chains that he wore. These chains are to this day treasured in the chapel where, it has been said by some, they were found behind an icon of the Mother of God at the elder's death. Another explanation is that they fell out from behind the icon at his death. Describing the ascetic labors of Father Herman, his disciple, the Aleut Ignatius Aliaga adds, yes, Appa conducted a hard life, and no one can imitate it. He was referring only to the external activities of the elder. However, his main activity, Bishop Peter said, was performed in the seclusion of his cell where no one saw him. Only outside his cell did they hear him sing and perform the services in accordance with the monastic rule. Such testimony of the bishop is confirmed by the following answer of Father Herman himself. The elder was asked, "How do you do, Father Herman? Managed to live alone in the forest? Don't you get bored?" "Oh, how do you, Father Herman, manage to live alone in the forest? Don't you get bored?" He answered, "No, I'm not alone here. There is God, and God is everywhere. There are holy angels. How can one be bored with them? With whom is it more pleasant and better to converse, angels or people? Angels, of course." How Father Herman regarded the native inhabitants of America, how he understood his relation to them, and how he had compassion for their needs, he expresses himself in one letter addressed to the former governor of the colonies, Yanovsky. The Creator has given to our beloved motherland this region. Like a newborn babe, it is still without strength or knowledge of any kind, nor sense. It demands not only protection, but also, because of its weak and tender age, it demands support. But it is still not even possible to ask anyone to do this. The dependence of this people is a blessing of Holy Providence, given as it is into the hands of the Russian authorities here for an unknown period of time, and is now given into your hands. For this reason, I, the most humble servant of the local peoples and their nurse, stand before you with streaming tears and write my request of you to be a father and protector to us. We, of course, know no eloquence, but we say, with the halting tongue of children, wipe away the tears of defenseless orphans, cool the heat of sorrow in melting hearts, give us to know the meaning of consolation. As the elder felt, so he also acted. He also interceded before the authorities on behalf of the transgressors, defending those who were being hurt, helping the needy ones in any way he could. The Aleuts of both sexes, as well as their children, would often visit him. Some would ask for advice, others complained that they were pressured, still others sought defense or requested help. Everyone received satisfaction to the degree it was possible for the elder to give it. He looked into their grievances. He tried to make all be at peace, and he worked especially to bring harmony back to families. It was not possible to make peace between husband and wife. The elder would separate them. If it was not possible to make peace between husband and wife, the elder would separate them for a while. The necessities of such measures he explained thus: better to let them live separately without fighting and quarreling. Believe me, keeping them together might be very frightening. There were cases where the husband would kill the wife, or the wife would drive the husband to madness. Father Herman especially loved children. He would give them crackers and bake pretzels for them. The little ones were especially attracted to his gentleness. The love of Father Herman for the Aleuts would often reach the point of self-sacrifice. An infection of deadly sickness and sores was brought by ship from the United States to the island of Sitka, and from there to the island of Kodiak. This sickness would begin with a fever and a very runny nose coupled with shortness of breath, and would end in spasms, with the victim dying within 3 days' time. Since there were no doctors or medicines on the island, the sickness spread through villages, quickly embracing the entire region. It affected all, even suckling babes. The death toll was so great that for 3 days there was no one to dig graves, and the unburied bodies were laying everywhere. An eyewitness said, I cannot imagine anything more sorrowful or more horrible than the sight I was struck with when I visited an Aleut dwelling place, Kazim. This was a huge barn or a barrack with bunk beds, which could lodge, excuse me, which could lodge as many as 100 people, where whole Aleut families were living. Some of the dead, who had already become cold, were stretched out next to the living. Others were dying with moans and groans that would tear your soul apart. Your heart would bleed with pity at the sight I saw of dead mothers, upon whose already cold breasts crawled hungry little infants who, futilely and with cries of anguish, were seeking food that was no longer there to be found. You would think that if you could paint all the horror of this sorrowful picture with a worthy brush, even the most hardened of souls would fear death. Father Herman, tirelessly visiting the sick the entire time the sickness lasted, a whole month with a gradual decline, begging them to be patient, to pray, to bring forth repentance, or to prepare themselves for death. The elder especially cared about the moral enlightenment of the Aleuts. With this aim in mind, he made a school for orphaned Aleut children. He himself taught them the law of God and church singing. He would gather the Aleuts for prayer in the chapel near his cell on feast days and Sundays. Here, his disciples read the hours and other prayers for them, and the elder himself would read the epistles and gospels and teach them with his words, while his girl students would sing. The Aleuts loved to listen to the instructions of Father Herman. These talks of the elder were very interesting, and they had an astounding power of influence over his listeners. About one of these grace-filled talks, he writes, "Glory to the holy ways of the merciful God. He, in his unfathomable providence, has shown me a new phenomenon which I have not seen in my 20 years of living here, which I have not yet seen in my 20 years of living here. Now, after Pascha, one young woman, no more than 20 years old, who knows how to speak Russian well, and who previously had never seen me or known me at all, came to me, and after hearing about the incarnation of the Son of God and of eternal life, became so inflamed with love of Jesus Christ that she did not want to leave me at all. After pleading with me for a long time, she has persuaded me against my own inclination and love of silence and seclusion to accept her. Disregarding all the hindrances and difficulties of which I warned her, she has already lived with me for more than a month and is not bored. I, with great amazement at seeing this, remember the words of the Savior, Thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes." This woman lived near the elder until his death. She watched over the good behavior of the children who studied in his school, and as he lay dying, he willed her to live on Spruce Island, and when she should die, to be buried at his feet. She was called Sophia Vlasov. Yanovsky, the governor, recounts many instances where St. Herman warmed the hearts, not just of the natives, but of the Russians. Yanovsky himself was one such. Highly educated and a superficial Christian, he was really a free thinker until he met St. Herman. To my amazement, he spoke so powerfully, so sensibly, and argued so convincingly that it now seems to me that no education or earthly wisdom could withstand his words. We conversed every day until midnight, and even later, about the love of God, about eternity, about the salvation of the soul, and about Christian life. His sweet speech poured forth from his lips in an unceasing stream. With such constant talks and through the prayers of the holy elder, the Lord completely converted me to the path of truth, and I became a true Christian. For all this I am indebted to Father Herman. He is my true benefactor. Several years ago, continues Zanovsky, Father Herman converted one naval captain, G, from the Lutheran faith to Orthodoxy. This captain was quite educated. Besides many sciences, he knew many languages: Russian, French, German, Italian, English, and a bit of Spanish. In spite of that, he could not resist the arguments and proofs of Father Herman. He changed his beliefs and was received into the church through chrismation. When he was leaving America, the elder said to him at parting, "See to it that if the Lord takes away your wife, that you will by no means marry a German woman. If you marry a German woman, she will inevitably hurt your orthodoxy." The captain gave his word but did not keep it. The warning of the elder turned out to be prophetic. After several years, the wife of the captain did die, and he wound up remarrying a German. Evidently, he either abandoned his faith or it was weakened, and died suddenly without repentance. Perhaps the best known saying of St. Herman's was given to his fellow Russians, the original description quoted in full below. In a conversation with a group of sailors, he quizzed them on their love of God. When they all glibly claimed to love God, he responded, "And I, a sinner, have tried to love God for more, and I, a sinner, have tried to love God for more than 40 years, and I cannot say that I perfectly love him." But he later added, "At least let us take a vow to ourselves that from this day, from this hour, from this very moment, we shall strive above all else to love God and to fulfill his holy will." In general, Father Herman loved to advise people in their hardships. He spoke wisely, to the point, and instructively, mostly on the points of eternity, salvation, the future life, and ways of God. He would relate much from the lives of the saints and from the prologue, but he never spoke about empty matters. Konstantin Larionov witnessed that those who conversed with him found it was so pleasant to hear him that even the Aleuts and their women were delighted with his talks, and it was not unusual for them to part from him unwillingly at the dawn of a new day. Janowski describes Father Herman's external characteristics in detail. "I clearly remember," he says, "all the features of the elder's face. It shone with grace, his pleasant smile, his meek, attractive look, his humble, quiet manner, and his pleasant words. He was not of a tall stature. His face was pale, covered with wrinkles. His eyes were gray-blue and full of brightness, and on his head he had a few gray hairs. His speech was not loud, but very pleasant." From his talks with the elder, Janowski recalls two incidents. "Once," he writes, "I read to Father Herman from Derzhavin's ode, 'God.' The elder was amazed, ecstatic, and asked that I read it once more, which I did. 'Is it possible that this was written by an ordinary learned poet?' he asked. 'Yes, he was a learned poet,' I answered. 'It was inspired by God,' said the elder." Another time I was telling him how the Spaniards in California captured 14 Aleuts, and the Jesuits, the Franciscans, were pressuring them all to accept the Catholic faith, which the Aleuts would in no way agree to do. "We are Christians," they said. "Not true. You are heretics and schismatics," argued the Jesuits. "And if you do not submit and accept our faith, we will torture all of you to death." Then the Aleuts were placed in prisons by twos. The Jesuits came into the prisons in the evening with lamps and lit candles, and again began to persuade two Aleuts there to accept the Catholic faith. "We are Christians," was the answer of the Aleuts, "and will not change our faith." Then the Jesuits began to torture them. At first one, while the other was a witness. They cut off one joint on the Aleut's feet, and then a second joint, and then one joint on the finger, and then a second. Then they chopped off the feet and hands. The blood flowed. The martyr endured and firmly repeated the same thing: "I am a Christian." In such suffering, he died from loss of blood. On the next day, the Jesuits promised to torture his friend the same way, but in the night they received an order from Monterey that all captured Aleuts should be delivered there immediately with a convoy. In the morning, they were all sent away, except for the deceased Aleut. This was told to me by an Aleut witness, a friend of the martyred one, who had escaped torture. I then reported this to the headquarters in Petersburg. When I finished my description, Father Herman asked, "And what was the name of the Aleut?" I answered, "Peter." but I do not remember his last name." Then the elder stood up before the icon, piously crossed himself, and pronounced, "Holy new martyr Peter, pray to God for us." In order to give you some indication of the spirit of Father Herman's teaching, we will cite some words from one of his letters. His letters reflect a man of patience, simplicity, and love. Quote, "Our sins do not in the least hinder our Christianity. Sin, to one who loves God, is nothing more than an arrow from the enemy in battle. The vain desires of this world separate us from our homeland. Love of them and habit clothe our soul as if in hideous garment. We who travel on the journey of this life and call on God to help us ought to divest ourselves of this garment and clothe ourselves in new desires, in a new love of the age to come, and thereby receive knowledge of how near or how far we are from our heavenly homeland." He never sought anything for himself in life. For a long time after his arrival in America, out of humility, he refused the rank of hieromonk or archimandrite, that's a priest monk, and remained forever a simple monk. Father Herman, without the slightest fear of those in power, worked for God with all his zeal. With meek love, disregarding rank, he reproached many for their unsober life, disrespectful behavior, and oppression of the Aleuts. The self-condemning anger of these people rose against him and made all kinds of difficulties for him and slandered him. The slanders were so powerful that often people of goodwill could not detect the lies in their accusations against Father Herman. So well were these accusations covered by external correctness. You would have to say that it was the Lord himself who preserved the elder. Even Yanovsky, before he had seen Father Herman, wrote to St. Petersburg about the necessity of the elders being removed. A false report was given to him that he was agitating the Aleuts against their authority. A priest from Irkutsk caused Father Herman much sorrow and wanted to send him away to Irkutsk. But a governor of the colonies, Muravyev, defended the elder. Another priest came to Spruce Island with a governor of the colonies and company employees to make an investigation of the cell of Father Herman, assuming they would find rich possessions there. When they did not find anything of value, the employee Ponomarkov, evidently with the permission of superiors, began to pull out floorboards with an axe. "My friend," Father Herman then said to him, "in vain hast thou taken this axe, this very tool which will deprive you of your life." After a certain period of time, men were needed for the Nikolaev redoubt, and several Russian employees were sent there from Kodiak. In their number was Ponomarkov, and there, at the redoubt, the Kenai natives chopped his head off with an axe when he was asleep. Father Herman also endured many sorrows from demons. This he revealed to his disciple Gerasim, when the latter, entering the cell without the usual prayer, did not receive answers to any of his questions. The next day, he asked for the cause of yesterday's silence. Quote, "When I came to this island and settled in this wilderness," Father Herman said to him, "many times the demons came to me as if from some need, and in the form of people, and in the form of animals. I endured a lot from them, both all kinds of sorrows and temptations, and therefore I now do not speak to anyone who comes into my cell without prayer." So when you go to visit a monk, a lot of times you'll call out, you'll say a Jesus prayer, and the monk will say Amen if he wants you to come in, and that's so that he knows you're not a demon. Having dedicated himself entirely to the will of the Lord, while zealously laboring alone to glorify his all-holy name, far away from his homeland amidst many sorrows and deprivations, and having labored for many decades with lofty self-denial, Father Herman was endowed with many supernatural gifts from God. In the middle of Spruce Island, there is a little river that runs from the mountain down into the sea. There were always large logs of driftwood at the mouth of this river, brought there by storms. In the springtime, when the fish would first appear, the elder would dig in the sand so that the river would pass by and the fish in the sea would hasten up the river. The disciple of Father Herman, Ignatius Aliaga, said, "It would happen that Appa would say, 'Go and get a fish from the river,' and I would go and get one. He used to feed birds with dried fish, and great numbers of them would nest near his cell. There were even some ermine living under his cell. This little animal, after giving birth to its litter, is unapproachable, yet the elder would feed them with his bare hands." "Wasn't that the feeding of the ermine really a miracle we have seen?" asked his disciple Ignatius. Father Herman was also seen feeding bears. With the death of the elder, both the birds and the beasts disappeared. Even if someone were to care for it willingly, the garden would not give forth a crop after the death of the elder. Once there was a flood on Spruce Island. The inhabitants ran with fear to the elder, whereupon he took an icon of the Mother of God from the house where the students lived, carried it out, and placed it on the shallow ground. He began to pray. After the prayer, he turned to those who were there and said, "Do not fear. The water will not go further than the spot where the icon is standing." True to his prophecy, the water did not go past the spot where the icon was placed. He promised them that the icon of the Holy Queen would protect them in future times of similar need. He assigned his student Sophia the task of placing the icon on Liada, shallow ground, in case of flooding. This icon is still preserved on Spruce Island. Once, at the request of the elder, Baron F.P. Rangel wrote a letter as dictated by Father Herman to a metropolitan. That's a archbishop. When the letter was finished, the elder congratulated the baron with the rank of admiral. The baron was amazed. This news in actuality was confirmed to him only after a long period of time upon his departure from Petersburg. "I feel sorry for you, my dear relative," Father Herman said once to the administrator Kashavarov, whose son was his godson. "I feel sorry for you. This change for you will be unpleasant." About 2 years later, when certain changes had taken place, he was sent to the island of Sitka in bonds. Once the forest on Spruce Island caught on fire. The elder, together with his disciple Ignatius, made a clearing in the forest thickets about a yard wide to the foot of the hill by turning the moss up, and said, "Be at peace, the fire will not cross this line." The next day, when, according to Ignatius, there seemed to be no hope for salvation, the fire came with great force up to the moss which the elder had upturned. It ran along it and stopped, not touching the forest on the other side of the line. A year prior to the news that was received in Kodiak about the death of a metropolitan, Father Herman said to the Aleuts that their big spiritual leader had died. According to Bishop Peter, the elder often used to say that in America they will have their own bishop, and that there will never be a time when America will be deprived of a bishop. His prophecy came true in time. "After my death," Father Herman used to say, "there will be a plague, and many people will die from it, and the Russians will join with the Aleuts." It is true that about 6 months after the death of the elder, there was a smallpox epidemic in Alaska that caused such an atrocious number of fatalities that in several villages only a few people remained alive. This compelled the colonial authorities to consolidate the Aleuts. Thus, from 20 villages, there remained only 7. "Although much time will pass after my death," Father Herman used to say to his disciples, "my memory will not be forgotten, and the place of my dwelling will not be empty. A monk similar to me, fleeing the glory of men, will come and will live on Spruce Island, and Spruce Island will not be without people." "My little one," Father Herman once asked Konstantin Larionov, when he was no more than 12 years old, "what do you think? Will the chapel which they are now building be abandoned?" "I do not know, Appa," answered the boy. "And really," said Constantine, "I did not understand the question then, although the whole conversation remains lively in my memory." The elder, being silent for a while, said, "My child, remember that in time there will be a monastery here." 30 years will pass after my death. All those who live now on Spruce Island will be dead. You alone will remain alive, and you will be old and poor. And then they will remember me. Father Herman used to say this to his disciple, the Aleut Ignatius Aliaga. It is remarkable, explains Ignatius, how a man similar to us could know all these things way ahead of time. He was not a simple man. He saw our thoughts, and he would make us involuntarily open them up to him and receive instructions. When I die, the elder would tell his disciples, you bury me next to Father Iosaf. Kill my bullock at once. He has served me enough. Bury me by yourselves, and do not tell of my death in the harbor. The inhabitants of the port, Kodiak, will not see my face. Do not send for a priest, and do not wait for one to come. Your waiting will be in vain. Do not wash my body. Place it on the board that was his blanket. Fold the arms on my chest. Bind me in my mantle, and with its edges, cover my face and my head with my klobuk. If anyone should wish to say goodbye to me, let him kiss the cross in my hands. Do not show anyone my face. After lowering me into the earth, cover me with my blanket. This blanket, as we have already mentioned, was the board that was always in his cell. The time was approaching for the departure of the elder. One day he called his disciple Yerasim to his cell to light candles before the icons and to read the Acts of the Apostles. After some time, his face shone, and he loudly pronounced, "Glory to thee, O Lord." Then, ordering Yerasim to stop the reading, he said that it was pleasing to the Lord to prolong his life 1 week more. After a week, again according to his order, the candles were lit and the Acts of the Apostles were read. The elder quietly leaned his head on the chest of Yerasim. The cell was filled with fragrance. His face was shining, and then Father Herman was no more. Hence he reposed with the sleep of the righteous in the 81st year of his long-suffering life, December 13th, 1837. In spite of the will of Father Herman expressed before his death, his disciples did not decide to bury him without letting anyone in the harbor know about his death. They were afraid of the Russians, the Aleuts said. An envoy was sent with the sad news to the harbor. Upon his return, the envoy informed them that the manager of colonies, Kashivarov, forbade them to bury the elder until his arrival. He had ordered a good coffin to be made for the deceased, and he himself would bring it without delay. However, such instructions were contrary to the will of the deceased, and so a frightful wind blew. Rain began to pour, and there developed a terrible storm. The traveling distance from the harbor to Spruce Island was not a long one, only 2 hours, but no one would venture to go into the sea in such weather. It continued in such a way for a whole month. The body of Father Herman lay in the warm house of his disciples. There was no change in his face and not the minutest smell from his body. Finally, the coffin was delivered by the experienced old man, Cosmas. I won't say that last name. Cosmas U. No one from the harbor came, and the inhabitants of Spruce Island placed the earthly remains of the elder into the earth themselves. So was fulfilled the last wish of Father Herman, and the wind calmed down, and the surface of the sea was as smooth as a mirror. Also, for some unknown reason, they did not kill the bullock, but the day after the death of Father Herman, his bull apparently began to miss him so much that in his despair he hit a tree with his head and fell to the ground dead. One evening in the village of Katari on Afognak Island, an unusual pillar of light was seen over Spruce Island that reached to heaven. Stunned by this miraculous phenomenon, the elderly Creole Yerasim Vologden and his wife Anna said to themselves, "It looks like Father Herman has left us," and began to pray. Subsequently, they were informed that precisely at that time the elder had passed away. This pillar was seen in other places by other people as well. That very evening in another village on Afognak Island, people saw a man lifted up from Spruce Island toward the clouds. Having buried their father, the disciples of the elder erected a wooden memorial over his grave. "I saw it myself," said Kodiak priest Peter Kashavarov. And now I can say that it is by no means touched by time and looks as if it were nailed together today. Seeing the glorious life of Podvig of Father Herman, that means like personal struggle, ascetic struggle. His miracles, seeing the fulfillment of his prophecies, and finally his blessed falling asleep. Generally, all the local inhabitants have an awesome respect for him as a holy ascetic and are entirely convinced that he was pleasing to God, according to Bishop Peter. In 1842, 5 years after the repose of the elder, while traveling by sea to Kodiak and finding himself in extreme danger, Archbishop Innocent of Kamchatka and the Aleutian Islands looked at Spruce Island and said in his mind, "If you, O Father Herman, have pleased the Lord, then let the wind change." And indeed, even a quarter of an hour did not pass, said the bishop, when the wind became favorable to them, and they successfully landed on the shore. Archbishop Innocent served a panakida at the grave of the Blessed One out of gratitude for his deliverance. And this archbishop is the Saint Innocent that we read of a few weeks ago.
Well, that is such a great story.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Let me pull up an icon.
Yeah,
I'll share it.
I got a couple things too that I dragged out from while you were reading that struck me that I'll read after.
Okay, 1 second. There's a really nice icon. Where was it? It was right here. Where was it? No. I don't know where. This one had a.
Doesn't want to be seen. St. Herman he's tricky, you know.
I know. Yeah, he's hiding.
He likes to be his own little man.
There was a really nice high resolution icon of him that I found earlier, but we'll share this one instead. Let's see. Open in a new tab. There we go. And let me. Sorry, I'm still learning.
In grade 2. Jeremy hasn't graduated yet.
Yes, basically that's a fact. Okay, let me share.
I'm going to throw an invite into the chat in case somebody wants to join us.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I saw there was a lot of chat going on. I wasn't able to pay attention.
Everybody was just waving hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Yeah.
We're
really
glad
nice
you're
to
here.
Have everybody here.
Yes.
Joy and Matthew
names.
and Cassandra and Upcycle and
nice.
And William and Ron. Oh, Jeremy, your voice lulled William to sleep for a while.
Well, glory to God. There's a saying that if you, like in monasteries, monks say this: if you see a brother who's fallen asleep in a service, just get him a pillow. Right?
I love
because
that.
I mean, it's not like, don't be mean, don't wake him up, don't make him
no.
feel bad. Just get him a pillow. Like, he's obviously tired. So.
Okay, so this is Saint Innocent, my friend. Did you mean for that one?
What?
Did you mean to have this one? Saint Innocent? We're doing Saint Herman.
Oh, whoops.
But this is the guy that landed. That's the guy that landed on the shore.
Well, I didn't mean to have that one, but now I'll do Saint Herman. Because we were talking about him last. That's just
there he is.
ADD.
There he is.
Just
that
ADD
looks like
things.
a really nice one, actually, that first one.
Yeah, that is nice. I'll open it in a new tab so we can see it a little more clearly. And do that. There we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that is a beautiful icon.
What's he got in his hand at the bottom there?
It looks like just a cane.
Oh, a cane, right? Yeah, because he was 81 when he died.
Yeah.
Living on an island in Alaska, and did he do what I think it was Saint Innocent? Did they do that like tremendous trek across Russia? Like, remember Saint Innocent? They left their monastery and they walked for I don't know how far,
That's a
months, I
good
think.
question. I don't know.
I
I
wonder
don't
if
know how
St. Herman
he
was
got
too.
across the continent. I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, that was in the 1700s, so that was like pre-train era. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, like this guy lived a hard life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
And
and
I
then
mean,
carrying
apart from
logs
the
around at night barefoot, right?
yeah, but I mean, even for the best of us, like without being an ascetic, it would have been a hard life. Well, Alaska? I
Yeah,
mean, at least the Aleutian Islands are not too cold. They're actually quite mild weather.
but so much water, right? It's like rainforest, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It rains a
Yeah.
lot. It's
So
cold.
yeah,
Cold and rainy.
yeah, that's wild. And then um what was I gonna say? Well, yeah, just walking around barefoot all the time is if you think that's easy, try it.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. Remember I told you about Chindy? He was barefoot all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. All the time. I keep forgetting to ask Tracy if he's still with us. I don't even know.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be quite a
Well,
character.
there
If I
was,
come up there, then maybe we can meet him. That'd be fun.
oh, yeah. Mhm. I think his if he can't be gone. I've never heard anything of the sort.
Yeah.
So,
I
um,
like wild people. I like crazy people. I
he's
like,
very wild. He's very
you know, I
wild.
heard Martin Shaw say that the other day. I loved it so much. He said, I've been asked before if while I'm praying, it feels like Christ is standing in front of me. And he said, no. He's like, I've never felt that. He
Mhm,
said, I always feel like I get tiny glimpses of Christ, like through walking next to me through a dark forest, like
mhm.
just these little, like, oh,
Yes.
I thought that was such a beautiful image.
Yeah, I there was a clip Jonathan Pajot made that I posted on the Grail Country Discord, and it said, "Don't think that you understand who Christ is." And I said, "I wish more of us would say this more often and more freely."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I've heard Father Stephen DeYoung talk about that too. He's like, the whole idea of like, what would Jesus do? He's like, you have no idea what Jesus would do, and you will never know what Jesus would do. Like, it's the most pretentious thing ever to say. He's like,
Yeah.
it's actually very dangerous. It's a spiritually dangerous thing to say
Yeah.
that you would, that you would ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? That's what I will do. It's like,
Well,
what?
this is
Who are
why
you? You have no idea.
I was always so annoyed, just in me, like personally, like not like
Yeah.
outwardly.
Right.
Um, and I was talking to Jeremy about some of the things that some of my radical movements in my life, things that I've said and done at weird times. And I just get like a conviction about certain things. And one of them, oh, now I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, one of them was emulate Christ. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
where do
What
you
you
go
want?
from there?
Like how
Where are
much?
you gonna go from
Like,
there?
yeah. No, I know.
Yeah, but all he ever did was confound.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
all
and
he
he
ever
would
did,
never answer a question
confound.
directly. You ask him a question, and he would.
Yeah,
It
like
was
if you
always,
think
and they were always
you can
confused.
emulate that, then have at her, you know?
Yeah.
And I until, I didn't know an answer to that until I met Theotokos. And I'm like, "Oh, this is who we emulate.
Right.
This is who we emulate, not Christ.
Right.
We
Right.
bring Christ into like we can, Christ is conceived in us, right?
Yes.
Like in the Theotokos. We don't emulate him. Anyway, that's my heretical point of view, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but
I agree. I mean, we're trying to have that likeness restored through theosis. That's theosis, right? Is to have the likeness. Like
right,
we're
and
created in the image and likeness, and we lost the likeness, according to the
right,
church father. We are
which
trying to gain that back, but
it's
that
not something we can grasp.
no, exactly. No, it's a gift.
So yeah, and it happens by remember was it you I was talking to Jeremy about reaching for the cup?
Yeah. Perhaps. Oh, yes. Yeah.
You have a
Yes.
cup?
Yeah.
John Vervaeke was talking about this one
Oh,
day.
yes. We were talking
And
about
you
this
reach
last
for
week.
the cup and you automatically know how big it is, where's the handle, how to pick it up, how to hold it, so, the balance, that everything about the cup. And you don't even have to look at the cup. You can do it without looking, right? So what's happening is that your hand is conforming to the shape of the cup. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what conforming to the image means.
Mhm.
And you can only do it if you're reaching. Okay?
Yes.
If you don't reach, you don't conform, right? I'm not conforming to the image. Now I'm conforming to the image. I only conform to the image, but in the act of reaching for the cup, in the act of reaching heavenward or towards God, we conform to the image of Christ. Anyway, that's my little Bible lesson for today.
Yeah. I like it. Oh, that's good.
I can't say it enough. It was like a eureka thing for me. I was like, oh my God. But I wanted to
So,
read.
no,
Go ahead.
hold on. William asked an
Yeah.
important question, and I don't want to let it slip. So he said, "I won't ask clergy what to do." Sorry, and that's okay. You can repent of that. But no, what? Because obedience is a good thing to practice. That's a whole thing we could talk about later. But the one he asked is, "Does the Holy Spirit confound?" And I would say yes. The Holy Spirit confounds the wise. That's what
Or
I
the
mean. That confounds the
worldly wise.
worldly. Yeah,
The
the
worldly
worldly wise. It confounds the worldly wise. It confounds those people who think they know.
wise. Mm-hmm.
And then reveals himself to the simple. Right. I mean, that was in the life of the saint that we read too. Right.
Have I got a quote for you?
Okay, let's hear it.
Because he was talking about in the story that you read, he mentioned, I think it was his disciple, I think it was Ignatius in that part, said something about his, or no, it was the governor, Yanovsky,
Mm-hmm.
who said, his wisdom was just so practical. I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
very easy language, not highly intellectual or anything, but really good wisdom from him. And I just happened to jot down a few quotes from Coleridge this morning because I loved them. And one of the things he says is, common sense in an uncommon degree is what the world calls wisdom.
Mm.
Common sense in an uncommon degree is what the world calls wisdom. Goodness in the form of truth and truth in the power of goodness is wisdom. That's why Father Herman, Saint Herman could come across like that, right? Because he was good and he was true.
Yeah.
And he was living a life that required common sense. Like when you live like that, you just have to do the thing that keeps you safe, right? That
Right.
keeps you from dying.
Right. Well, and you don't have time to sit around and do a bunch of like theology, deep
Even
theology.
if you did,
And yeah.
even if you did, you quickly learn in that kind of a life that it doesn't matter. What matters is what puts food on the table, wood in the stove, right? Like,
Right.
um,
And
help.
and you're praying the whole time you're doing those things.
Yes.
Right. He
And
was singing and he was praying, he was
well, it's
chanting,
also,
and doing all that.
yeah. And then he's probably deeply involved in the community, helping
Yep.
people get well,
People were
looking
coming
for
to him to be
medicinal
taught. He was
herbs.
teaching at the school. Yeah.
Right. And he was probably very well versed in medicine. A lot of monasteries grew medicinal herbs, like, gardens of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah.
And they knew how to cure simple illnesses and so on. So, And then the other thing I looked up while you were talking was he made mention, or you made mention of an ode by,
Yes.
his name is Gavrila Romanovich Derzavin, and he was Romanian. And this is his ode, and I'm going to read it. It's just called God. Okay. And I've never read it before. So,
I haven't either. This is great.
oh, thou, and remember, Saint Herman, when he heard it, thought that this man was inspired by God. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Poets and, yeah. O thou who's infinite in space, alive in ever-moving matter, eternal in the flow of time, God faceless with a trinity of faces, soul unified and omnipresent, who needs no place or reason, whom none can ever comprehend, whose being permeates all things, encompassing, creating, guarding, thou called by us God. Although a great mind might contrive to fix the ocean's depths, to count the sands, the rays of stars, thou can't be summed or fixed. Enlightened souls who have emerged from your creative light cannot begin to grasp your ways. Our thought alone aspires to thee, but in your magnitude is lost a moment in eternity. From depths eternal thou invoked primordial substances of chaos. Within thine very self thou birthed eternity before all time. And before time from thine self alone, thou shinest forth within thyself. All light originates in thee, creating all with but a single word, and reaching forth in new creation, thou wast, thou art, and thou will ever be. Thou incarnate the chain of life, thou nourish and sustain it, thou joinest starts with ends, thou bringest life to all through death. New suns are born from thee, in flowing streams of sparks, as on a clear and freezing day, a hoarfrost dusting shines, and floats and churns and sparkles, as do the stars beneath thy vault. A multitude of shining spheres floats off into infinity. They all fulfill thy laws and cast their vivifying rays. But all these brilliant lanterns, this mass of glowing crystal, this roiling crowd of golden waves, these burning elements, or all these gleaming worlds as one, compare to thee like night to day. Compared to thee, the earthly realm is like a droplet in the sea. What is this universe I see? And what am I compared to thee? If in this airy sea I wish to multiply 1,000,000 worlds, by other worlds 100 times, then venture to compare the sum to thee. All this would be a tiny speck. So I, compared to thee, am not. I'm not, but thou shinest through me with all the splendor of your virtue. Thou showest yourself through me like sun inside a tiny water drop. I'm not, but still I can feel life. Like something hungering, I fly. I'm always soaring high above. To be with you is my soul's wish. It contemplates, reflects, and thinks. If I exist, thou art as well. Thou art. As nature's order shows, my heart affirms the same to me. My reason's sure of it. Thou art, and I'm no longer not. A fraction of the universe's whole. It seems that I repose in nature's critical center where you started, with the creation of corporeal beast or corporeal beasts, and ended with the heavenly spirits. Through me you fused the chain of life. I am the link of all existing worlds. I am the outer brink of matter. I am the focal point of living things. I am the starting place of the divine. Although my flesh rots into ash, my mind commands the thunderbolts. I'm king, I'm slave, I'm worm, I'm God. But though I am miraculous, whence did I come? that no one knows. I could not by myself have risen. Creator, I am your invention. I am a creature of your wisdom. O source of life, bestower of blessings, my soul and king. According to your iron laws, myself eternal must needs pass across the bourne of death, my spirits clothed in mortal garb, and I return through death alone to your eternity, O Father. Thou art inscrutable, transcendent. I understand that all my soul's imaginings are powerless, your shadow to describe, but when thou must be glorified, to pay such tribute we frail men, one course alone can follow. We venture upwards to thy realm, to lose ourselves in thy vast otherness, and shed our tears of gratitude. That's the poem that Father Herman heard.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm going to have to get a copy of that and read it regularly. That's quite beautiful. It feels like the Psalms.
Well, we all write psalms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah. It's a good one.
And, something came to me while you were sharing it. And by the way, Cassandra, it took all of my sobriety and all of my effort not to laugh out loud at your joke. Let me ask ChatGPT real quick. When you were answering Afriel, that was hilarious. But also, because Afriel asked, how do we discern who we should obey? And she said, let me ask ChatGPT real quick, which is great. But and I have a little answer to that too, right? So I used to be very anti-authority. I grew up living under tyrannical authority and became very libertarian and anarchist as a result. And fought against authority most of my life and was very egalitarian. All of that went away as I became Orthodox. And the reason I was able to let it go is that I learned to see my priest as a guide, as like a fishing guide or a hunting guide, rather than as a boss or an authority. So it was the idea of like, I don't like if I grew up fishing freshwater. I've used this analogy before, but I grew up freshwater fishing. So I know a lot about fishing and I've caught thousands of fish. But if I were to go to the ocean, I would have very little, if any, idea of how to catch a fish. I mean, I could cast something out, but I wouldn't even know what bait to use. And I wouldn't know what big of a hook to use or where to fish or what, or when. And so I would look around for a guide. So in answer to your question, Afriel, that's part of the question, is that you find someone who's living, that's kind of what I was trying to say. You find someone who's living in a profound peace, and then you just do what they do. And if you ask them something and they give you some advice, do that and act like it's the gospel, and your whole life gets transformed, because it's the idea of looking at them as a guide rather than as your boss. Right. And when if you want to go hunting, if you want to be successful on your hunt, or if you want to go fishing and you want to be successful in catching a fish, you're not going, like, if the fisherman says, here, put this on and sneak up, and you have to go over there and you have to crouch down, you have to go up, or you're not going to catch a fish, you don't have to listen to him. That's the thing, right? You don't have to listen to the guide. It's not the fishing police aren't going to show up. But when you go over to the lake and you just walk over there and you go tromping over next to the little stream in the mountains, you're probably not going to catch a fish. So if you want to catch a fish, find someone who knows how to catch fish and then listen to them.
The other thing I would say about obedience is that if your heart is oriented towards God, it doesn't matter who you're obeying.
That's true.
Jesus said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and that which is, and render unto God that which is God's. That doesn't mean you have to decide what's God's. If it's obviously God's, I think that's what he's talking about. If it's obviously Caesar's, right? Because he was talking about the coin that had the faces on it. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, we did Saint Longinus last week, and he was the Roman centurion that put the spear through Christ's side, and he entertained men who were going to kill him at the behest of the, I don't know, the
The
commander.
governor. Yeah, the governor of the area.
And they didn't know it was Longinus that they were having dinner with, and he didn't know that they were out to get him. Well, he suspected it was coming or something like that. Anyway, they revealed that they were looking for Longinus, and he said, "Oh, that's me." And they said, "Oh, well, just run away. We'll tell him we couldn't find you." And he said, "No, do your job."
Yeah.
Okay. So obedience is obedience. And if we want to choose who we want to obey, then we're playing God, and I'm saying this from my own experience, which I've mentioned before, when I was in a church that, wasn't great, but I came under, the way that they did things because I wanted to learn what obedience was. And I ultimately, through that experience, I learned that obedience is always obedience to God if you're in the right position, if you're facing God, right? If you're obeying someone because you think they're God, that's different.
Right. Well,
But
in the Orthodox view, if you follow someone who gives you bad advice, wrong advice, your priest tells you to do something awful or stupid or wrong. In the Orthodox view, you're blessed for your obedience, and your priest will be accountable for the crappy advice he gave you. That's why they wear the stole around their neck for confession. That stole is to remind them that's the millstone that hangs around their neck, and it has the little fringes at the bottom of the stole. Then those fringes are the people that will be the millstone around the neck of the priest at Judgment Day, right? So he knows the stakes, and he submits to that. But that's something that we also have to keep in mind, is that ultimately, if you follow bad advice from someone, like Sherry's saying, you're going to be blessed. Like if your parents are tyrants, but you follow them,
Mhm.
you're learning humility. That's the whole point. Like
Yes.
humility is the key to the kingdom.
Mhm. Yes. And it's a freaking hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear
It's a
where
hard
William's
one.
coming from, and William is coming from where I used to be, right? Where he said, I follow what deserves my respect. Well, that's kind of counter to what the scriptures tell us, right? Like we can't always recognize holiness, and we can't always recognize, we're easily deceived. We easily deceive ourselves. These things take time and are hard to work out. But if you're earnest in trying to pursue Christ, that is seen. Like that effort is seen by God. And you don't,
Well, you ultimately too,
if
Jeremy,
someone's a leader over you and you don't respect them, that's on you.
you
It's not on
ultimately
them,
pray.
right?
You pray for them, first of
Yes.
all.
Yes.
You pray that God will, you know, if they, move them in a way that is good.
That's a very good point. That's a good thing to do before confession. You pray that the advice that your priest gives you is from God, and then follow it as if it is.
Yeah, and pray
Yeah.
for him. Like,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Lord, have
Yeah.
mercy, because that's a big job. I wouldn't want
Yeah.
it, to be
Right.
honest. And like this was my simple little lesson that God taught me, 'cause I was like, I remember thinking, okay, so because God said, I wanted to leave the church I was in. And God said, no, I want you to stay there. I said, well, why? Because you need to learn how to submit to authority. And I'm like, but this is all wrong. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And, look, you're looking at the face of someone. If you think William's a libertarian, You haven't met one
I
villain.
get it. Like, really, I get it. Trust
Like,
me.
I was just like, nothing had authority over me. Nothing. There was very little that I deeply respected. Anyway, and then, I'd say, okay, so I'm just there and I'm trying to enjoy myself. And then I'd say something like, oh, I'd really like to sing some hymn number, 59. And some man would stand up and say, could we sing hymn number 59? I'd be like, God heard me. Right? It was God that heard me.
Yes.
And then I realized, okay, like, what am I worrying about here? What am I like? There's really, I would say, not real. There's really like nothing to worry about. You just have to trust God. Like, I mean, in that story of Saint Herman, he wasn't just having to deal with the elements and, maybe the odd curmudgeon on the island. He was dealing
Right.
with powers and principalities in the church that wanted him gone.
Yeah. Priests, bishops,
Priests and bishops who wanted
slander.
him out of there.
Yeah.
Like, let's actually let's look straight at that one, okay? Because that is a hard one, especially when you're talking about obedience.
Right. Well, Saint Maximus the Confessor had his tongue cut out
Hey, Donnie.
and lived
Yes.
for 2 years with no
God.
tongue. And then after he died, because he was speaking the truth and he was calling out heresy
Yep.
of a bishop. And so they cut his tongue out. And then 2 years after he died, they were like, oh, you were right. Sorry. Right.
Oh, I know. Let's not even go there. Like that, there's so many saints and martyrs who were saints and martyrs because of the church.
Right. Yeah. St. John Chrysostom was another one. Tongue cut out, exiled.
Yeah.
Died in exile.
Oh.
Yeah, it's good to want to serve Afriel, but it's more important to put people to do alms than it is to give advice. And it's much more effective to pray for someone than it is to give them advice. Even your kids. I've just been learning this recently. It's so much better for your kids to just pray for them and let God speak to them in a way that they can understand, because they don't want to hear it. And most people don't want to hear it. And if they do, they'll ask you. And if they don't ask you, just pray for them. But it's better to like make dinner for someone than it is to give them
This is why when George MacDonald talks about letting your light shine, it really, really resonates with me. To do the thing that is put before you to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because we're not called to do, like, we aren't an army. We don't march in lockstep. We are particular, fearfully and wonderfully made people that God uses in the world. And so this is, like, if you think about Saint Herman on Spruce Island, shining his light, right? Which is what he was doing. And of course, people who are not in a good place, they want to put that out. They want to put that light out. And that, of course, they notice it, right? So, there's Evgeny. Hi.
Hello, guys. Good to see you.
Good evening. Good to
Yeah,
see you.
I have about
you too.
20 minutes, so I just wanted to see your faces.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too.
Yeah. Did you get to hear the story of Saint Herman?
Partly.
Okay.
About I heard about Aleutian Islands. I actually went and looked up where where
Where
it
they are.
was. So it's amazing.
The whole
And
little
as you were, yeah,
string of
strip of
pearls.
islands.
Yeah.
And I actually looked up several Orthodox churches there because on Google Map you can actually it shows you pictures.
Oh, really?
They
Eh?
are.
Well, that's
Yeah.
cool. Maybe we could do that after, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I had friends who lived on a little island there called Umnak. He was a teacher.
Uh,
With Like they live in Alaska. She's Canadian and he's American. When they got married, he just wanted to go live in really remote places. So they lived on this tiny island in the Aleutian Islands called Umnak. And apparently, like they experienced, little mini earthquakes all the time, little what do you call
Yeah, it
those?
looks like volcanic. The whole
Well, it's that whole
stretch of
Pacific
land.
ring of fire there.
Yeah,
Japan, the Aleutian Islands, like Vancouver, California, that whole area is just like ready to roll. Ready to rock and roll. It's always
Pulling it
moving.
up. Nope, not that one. That one. There we go.
Now you got some Google Earth happening here.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is Alaska here. This is Alaska. This is Russia over here. And so the Aleutian Islands. Whoa, we jumped around there.
Canada.
Yeah, no one cares. So over America's hat is right there. So anyway, yeah, these are the Aleutian Islands that go down. Like you said, there's like volcanic.
It's a little string of pearls there.
Yeah.
This is the Russian idea of island hopping.
Yeah. I see
and
some
I just
of
searched
them.
for. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I just see some Russian names there, right on the islands, and I see some American names. So it's just like a mixture of everything there. It looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a lot of Aleutian, like Aleut names. I think Umnak and Unalaska, Unimak, those kind of names are Aleut names. And then there's Nikolsky and, Makushin, and those are Russian names.
Yes.
Yeah, Adak.
See if you can show us the photo of some of those churches.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Let me make it bigger. Where's the photos? St. Alexander's. Where is it?
Yeah, right at the top. You have your thing on it there.
Website? Oh, I'll try go. Oh, their website doesn't work.
The photo.
Okay. Oh,
see the photo?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
Wow, that's that. I can see why it's called a desert. Like that's desolate. Like it doesn't look like it, but there's no trees, right? There's a church.
Yeah, well, most of these islands are just covered in grass.
Look at that.
Wow. You can pilgrimage in North America. You can pilgrimage there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is here's the church from the sky.
Jan God's thinking the same as me. Zoom in. See the buildings.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Those are all the pictures. That's St. Alexander of Nevsky. Okay, let's go back. Oh, too much back. There we go. St. Nicholas Chapel. Let's see that one. No pictures? Come on. Google.
Yeah, I checked several islands, and it looks like there are very, very few photographs, just very few pictures. But there are some.
Matushkin.
Maybe you can just do. Can you do that? What do they call it? Street view?
This one. Oh, here we go. Here's another one. Oh, where's this? Yeah, this is on Matushkin. Here we go.
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big church.
It looks old to me. It looks pretty
old. Yeah, the roof looks old. The wood.
Can you do the street view, Jeremy? See, right at the top, it says street view. There, now we're there. Look, we're actually there. Sea cans. Those are really important in these places because the mice don't get in.
Look how nice the lawn is too. Notice that? Like, look how it is over here. And then look, they take care of nice care of the lawn. There's the church.
And the island. And the mountains.
In the mountains, yeah. A few trees. Well, they must have planted those.
They must have planted those, yeah. You can
Yeah.
see that there's not a lot of trees on these islands.
No. That must be because the soil must be really rocky or something. I don't
Can
know.
you move to the front of the building on Street View? I think if you just click ahead
Yeah,
somewhere,
like double click anywhere. I think it
I'm
would.
double
trying
click
to double
anywhere.
click. Nothing's happening.
No,
I'm
double
double
click.
clicking. I
Oh,
am.
are
I'm
you?
double clicking.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're weird.
I'm double clicking. Nothing's happening. Double click. Double click. Won't let me.
Oh,
It's
well.
like, nope, you don't get it. You know, this is the only place you get to stand, which is fine.
Yeah.
Bishop's house. What is this? Oh, here we go. Here's another church. Wow. That looks
Winter
cool.
time.
Very same style though. Like same style of roof, same architectural style. 8-sided
Windows.
windows. That's very cool.
Yep. There would be bells in there, right?
Generally, yep. Yep. Just the two pictures of the church. That's
This
great.
style looks a little different to me. It looks like a kind of a mixture between something Orthodox and Catholic at the same time. Strange.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Well, let's go back to the other one. It was not that one. Oh, this is a new one. We didn't see this one yet.
St. Nicholas.
We'll
Where's
go here.
that?
That's in, oh, where'd it go? It was right on that island. Oop, we jumped too far away. Right there. St. Nicholas. On whatever this island is. Four-wheeler out front.
They have in the
I love the iconography. Look at that icon of the Theotokos. Oh,
yeah.
I love that icon.
That
Wow.
looks kind of Catholic too, actually. But maybe it's more Russian.
Yeah, that was a style of Russian icon that looked like this. Oh, I love that. And there's Christ. There's Angel Gabriel.
In the prairie provinces of Canada, where many Ukrainians settled, they have churches that look just like this, actually. Wooden, with the little, bubble architecture, the little Ukrainian and Russian. What do you call those anyway? I don't know.
The domes?
Are you referring to domes?
Is that what they are? But they're not really domes. They're like little bubbles. They remind me of bubbles.
Turrets. I don't know what they're called. Little turrets.
By obedience, we are guarded against pride. That's good. Upcycle. I like that.
Atka. Here's one more.
That's interesting that in Ukrainian churches, at least where I've been, Mary is always wearing like ribbons in her hair.
Oh, really?
It's very, very Ukrainian, and you never see it in Russian
icons.
Icons. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
don't think I've ever seen Mary's hair, let alone ribbons in her hair. Because normally it's hidden under veil. You don't even see her hair.
True.
I'm not sure if I saw the hair, but it was ribbons.
Interesting.
Somehow, I'll have to find it.
Somebody just took a few pictures with a drone here. Apparently, you don't actually get to see inside the church. I like the style though, where it has the two wings out here. Usually, this is where the choirs would stand singing.
For such small communities, like I'm thinking about myself. I'm like, I wish we had one of those in our town.
Yeah.
They have such a great big church, and they're just tiny little communities.
Yeah. Well, you just need a saint to come live with you for 40 years, apparently.
Well, yeah, but when we did St. Innocent, remember, they talked about how many of the Russian fur traders that started going to these places would bring orthodoxy there with them. And they were like people were converting and they were already, doing it. They just didn't have a priest. And then when the priest would show up and he was just basically doing these baptisms like every day,
Yeah.
Duncan.
Well, and
Because
it's
they were all
interesting.
there.
St. Herman was not a priest either, right?
He wasn't?
refused it. No, he refused it. They wanted to make him, and he said, out of humility, he's like, "No, I'm not worthy to be a priest."
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
he stayed a monk.
So he
He
wasn't
was a simple
baptizing.
monk his whole life.
He wasn't
Yeah, no.
baptizing them.
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's interesting. So he just loved the people. He was just living
Yeah.
with the people.
Because there were other Baptists, or there were other priests there, and there were bishops there.
Mhm.
So yeah, he wasn't a priest.
Yeah, that's nice.
I'm curious what you'd think about St. Michael's Cathedral in Sitka, Alaska. Okay, let's look at it. Hold on.
Yeah, let's have a look. We'll do a little trip to Alaska on the internet.
Yeah.
How does that feel, Evgeny, finding Russian roots in Alaska?
No, that's I would love to go there someday,
Yeah,
because I've heard there's so many, the descendants of Russian settlers,
totally.
including people that already were there when the piece of land was sold, and they just remained there. And
Where is it?
it's just
Where is it?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. That would be a fun kind of throwback thing to go to, check out.
Hmm hmm
oh, there it is.
I'd be really interested to see what kind of orthodoxy is there, because even inside Russia there are various types of orthodoxy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Orthodoxy
you
tends
can
to do
tell.
that, right? Like it tends to kind of meld into the culture. Like there's Bulgarian is different, Romanian is different, Ukrainian is different,
Serbian is different.
Serbian, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah,
Coptic is different. For
Coptic.
sure.
Well, that's very different. Yeah. Wow, look at this. All the
This
gold
is
and the gilding and
fantastic.
yeah.
I love, look at that too. Because of the lamp or whatever, like you can't see Theotokos at all. Like it's just a ball of light. I mean, you can barely see her face, and then she's holding infant Christ. But I love her crown too. It's really beautiful. Wow.
Russians like learning about native cultures in the US. Met some people who took trips over there to look at artifacts they had from those early trading days.
This is all from St. Michael's, St. Michael the Archangel Orthodox Church in Sitka, Alaska. This is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Wow, that's the altar. Those are the holy doors. Oh,
Yeah.
So Homer,
unbelievable.
is Homer in Alaska too? Lochlan? Is that who you are? Lochlan? I don't know how to say the other word. Ixnon? Ixnon? Is that a Greek word?
There's some artifacts.
Yeah.
Some old monstrance, old in the Gospels.
Yeah, I mean, how long were the Russians trading in Alaska? I don't even know. Were they there in the 1500s?
That's a good question. I don't know when they first got there.
Oh, I have no idea now. Well, that part of Chukotka, I don't know how you pronounce it in English. That peninsula was sort of explored in the 17th century, I believe, starting late 17th century.
Yeah.
More
I
and
mean, I
more.
remember reading about the fur traders. Like this was part of our Canadian history for some reason, because I think we're still really, kind of ticked that we didn't get Alaska.
Oh, yes. Wow.
They can't really. Oh, the bishop's cathedral throne, hand carved by Saint Innocent,
Oh,
founder of Saint Michael's Cathedral. Oh, so
Saint
Saint Innocent.
Innocent.
Yeah,
Let's
the
see
first
that.
Orthodox bishop of Alaska.
Let's see it. Oh, that. Okay, cool. He
Very
carved
simple bishop's throne, but so beautiful.
Right. Okay, so I'm just looking up this.
Yeah. Oh, there's the bishop's throne right in the middle. Now you can. That's a better shot of it.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So in Orthodoxy and in kind of traditional culture, the person who's basically highest in the hierarchy sits and everyone else stands out of respect. And we kind of have this in the United States. We have remnants of this, like when the president walks in a room or when a judge walks in a room, everyone, all rise, everyone stands up, they walk in, they sit down first, and then everyone else sits down. In the old culture, they would sit down and no one else would sit down. You stand out of respect. You stand out of honor to them.
Same in the Chilcotin culture. When an elder comes in, everybody stands up and they offer their seat just in a room. So it says here that the first Russian, Semyon Dezhnev, sailed through the Bering Strait and landed in the Diomede Islands in 1648.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Wow.
Late 17th century. Yeah.
There's another Saint Herman icon in that
Yeah.
church. Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Saint Olga.
Yes, Saint Olga. We covered her.
Yep. Oh, this is beautiful. Now I want to go on pilgrimage to.
Okay, so now we should look up. We should look up this one here. There's a Russian Orthodox community in Homer, Alaska.
Homer, Alaska. Okay. Orthodontist. No. All right. Oh, look at that. That's nice. All the wood. That is beautiful.
That's a nice. Oh, that's a beautiful little church, eh?
Yeah.
Very cute. Tiny.
I like the bell outside too.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at the pretty flowers in the front. That's nice. The blue and the blue.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice shot. This is inside. Very nice.
I like wooden churches. There's something about them.
Yeah.
We had a really pretty Orthodox church near Novosibirsk, where we lived before moving to the U.S. And it's called Akadem Gorodok. And it's a really pretty old wooden church. And there was like a little wooden house booth outside where they would sell fresh sourdough bread pretty much every Sunday. So we just go there.
Yummy.
Yeah. Oh man, sourdough. You had me a sourdough bread.
Novosibirsk. That's where you used to be, near?
Yes. We lived there for 8 years before moving to the U.S. Novosibirsk. It's basically, it means New Siberia.
Yeah. Where exactly is that then? It's
Well,
north, right?
In the middle. It's Siberia. It's exactly in the middle. So
Novosibirsk.
Novosibirsk.
Novo.
Novosibirsk.
Yeah.
Sharing. Hold on.
It's a relatively young city compared to others.
Did they make it? Did they do the communist like pop-up city? Is that how that came to be, or?
It probably was founded right after the revolution, maybe before the revolution.
The Trans-Siberian Railway fueled much of the city's growth.
Okay. Yes, it's exactly where it goes.
Okay.
And I was born in Omsk, which is about 1,000 kilometers west of
Omsk. I see it there.
Oh, here.
Yep, it is. That's where it's born.
600 miles in non-Freemason units.
Did you ever get to Mongolia, Evgeny?
I didn't. Well, I was really close, but we didn't. We actually used to go to the Altai Mountains.
Yeah.
every summer, which is, I mean, if you look at Novosibirsk, they would be southeast, pretty much along the border with Kazakhstan.
Yeah,
You go
yeah,
down,
yeah.
down, down. You get Bisk, another small town, and the whole region is just kind of very, very gorgeous.
Altai Tavan Bogt National Park is between Mongolia and Russia. There, right where Mongolia and Kazakhstan touch, like the
like
Yes,
here?
finger of
exactly,
God.
exactly.
Right here?
That
Yeah,
reminds me of
yeah.
the finger of God painting in the Vatican, right?
Mhm.
There's a couple on, I think they're in Kazakhstan because I think most of their videos are done in the Altai Mountains. They're they're mostly just, there's a lot of people that do this. They make quite a bit of money on YouTube, right? But they feature all these like incredible glamour camping outings that they do. They have these tents. They did a whole series on these tents that you blow them up, like you blow up the frame of the tent. So you just pump it up with the compressor and the whole tent just goes boof. And they're huge. And some of them have just plastic panels in the roof so you can see the stars, and they got their glam air bed and their little night tables. Like they set it all up, and it looks like a 5-star hotel. But they're in I think they're in Kazakhstan, and they're always
It's a
camping.
railroad station, the green one.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense. That
Massive.
looks like that's like the height of communist architecture,
Exactly.
right
That's
there.
very, very communist.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's an old church in Novosibirsk.
That's fantastic. Here's some more communist art.
Oh yes.
Okay, now
This is a
that's
new
pretty.
building.
That's pretty
It's a-
dramatic.
That's
That's
dramatic.
amazing.
Yeah, I think Putin himself came to open an opening ceremony when this was built,
Okay.
2010 or something.
I see.
Amazing.
Yeah, that.
Here's
Here's
another.
a church. This feels very institutional.
Yes.
Are these bringing up bad memories? I'm sorry.
No, there's good
okay.
memories. Oh, no,
Okay,
no,
good.
no.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Very good.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That looks like pre-communism. That looks like pretty old
Definitely.
It's
architecture.
actually Stalin's time. I'll
Okay.
say it's 40s.
I see.
40s probably.
And I keep seeing this building. What is this building?
It's small here. It must be Philharmonic, like the place where,
Oh, symphony.
like an opera house,
Oh,
symphony,
opera
yeah,
house.
symphony hall,
Okay.
opera house.
I see. Oh, this looks a closer version of it. This is a bigger version of it.
Yeah, this must be
Square Theater, it's called.
Okay.
Oh, that's right, Square Theater.
Ah,
With those figures of soldiers right outside. And I believe Lenin should be there, if I'm not mistaken.
Lenin, like
Lenin, yeah, like the
the mummified
leader.
version. Mm-hmm.
Not the mummified version. I mean the statue of
Okay.
them. Well,
is he still on Red Square? Can
No,
you still
he
go in
is.
his
Yes,
is he
he
really?
is.
He still is?
Yes, he is. Yes, they were
Wow.
talking about removing him and
I
giving
thought
him
they
a proper
did.
burial, but they didn't. No.
Oh, there's a church.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Oh,
he
wow.
was also he was a philosopher too, I guess.
You mean Lenin?
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
Except that he didn't like other people arguing with him. And that's why he pretty much put all the intellectual competition on that philosopher's ship,
Yes.
and just sent them off
Yeah.
to Europe or wherever. And
Yeah. Well, thank God he did.
yes.
because we got Bulgakov and Florensky out of that deal.
Florensky. Well, Florensky actually died in the Gulag
Oh no,
in
Florensky didn't
1937.
make it. That's right. Florensky
Yeah.
didn't make it. I just realized that
Mhm.
too.
Oh, this is interesting.
Well, Nikolai Berdyaev made it to Paris,
Badaev.
and I'm really thankful because his works were so like a discovery for me. I mean, I discovered so many amazing philosophical
I'm
thoughts. And
just discovering, and thanks to Michael Martin, I'm taking Michael Martin's sociology course right now, and we did a little bit of Berdyaev, but mostly Bulgakov and Florensky so far. But um, when I'm reading them, I'm wishing I understood Russian because I can read German, and I just know how much more there is to what they're saying if you have the original language, right?
oh yeah. True. But
I'm
most translations are good. I mean, they're
you
good.
think? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sometimes certain words don't really make it, don't really cut it, but
Yeah.
mostly I like it.
Well, I read a bit in the class. I read something Michael recommended out of can you see that one?
The pillar and the ground of the truth.
That one is
Florensky.
and I'm gonna read this because it is yeah, I think you would actually really like it, Evgeny, because it's very poetic in nature. Like it's not
It is.
theological,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
It's really beautiful.
Mhm.
Have you read it? Have you read
I
it?
could have. Yeah. I listened to most of his books, audiobooks,
Okay.
in about early 2000s. I don't remember exactly if I listened to this one, but I know the title in Russian. So
Okay. Yeah, you can some of them haven't been translated in English till just recently. So,
oh.
but you
Yeah,
could
I was so surprised when I heard Martin, what's his name?
Michael Michael
Michael
Martin.
Michael Martin mention Berdyaev. I was like, it gave me like an electric shock. Like I didn't expect anybody to know him on this part, side of the Atlantic.
Right.
How would he know about him? But now that his books are being translated, it's
Mhm.
great.
This is
Well,
the first
him
I've heard of him.
He,
So
Nikolai
mm,
Berdyaev, yeah.
yeah, I've not heard of him.
Florensky and Bulgakov were both priests, and Berdyaev wasn't. And Michael Martin has said in the class that because of that, Berdyaev was a little more courageous with his exploration.
he was.
But both Bulgakov and Florensky were staying within the parameters of dogma,
Hmm.
and trying to lay out a more systematic kind of theology around Sophia, wisdom of God. Berdyaev, I haven't really only read a short excerpt from the class, and it was great.
Hmm.
Yeah.
He was actually the one who, right before leaving Russia on this philosopher's ship, he was summoned to the head of the KGB. At, it was called a different name back then. Uh, so who was this guy's name? Dzerzhinsky. Dzerzhinsky was the head of the KGB, and Dzerzhinsky was actually a pretty. He was really keen on philosophy, so he knew a lot of philosophy. And he started to debate Berdyaev about some of his ideas because he was deeply religious philosopher, and so he was trying to sort of kind of talk him out of it in some ways.
Mm.
And then after the conversation, Berdyaev said, the very fact that you get rid of all the intellectual competition to communism speaks volume about the how strong your arguments are. So it's not that hard to debate it's not so hard to debunk idolatry once you know the truth. and so Dzerzhinsky, the head of the KGB, Dzerzhinsky, he basically said, well, you need to get on that philosopher ship as fast as possible because we don't want you here.
Oh, wow.
And then later on, he wrote a book called, Berdyaev wrote a book called, I forgot the exact name, but it's like the sources of Russian communism. And in this book, he traces most of communist ideology and idolatry down to orthodoxy.
Yeah, this is
He
what
basically
William.
says because you have to have something that looks and sounds so very similar to truth for people to buy into that.
You know what,
And
though?
yeah,
I just listened to a book called True Believers by Eric Hofer.
hmm,
I was reading somebody's Substack, and they wrote an article on it, but it was behind a paywall, and I couldn't finish it because in order to claim a free post, you have to have a phone number that's not a landline, has to be a cell phone number. And I don't have a cell phone, so I couldn't claim my free post and finish the article. And it was on Eric Hofer, so I looked up the book, and I was able to listen to it on Spotify, because if you have a paid account, then you can do audiobooks on there. And he talks about hope. Like, so he wrote this in the 50s on mass movements and what makes true believers. And he was looking at true believers like, fascists, communists, religious people, all just true believers of all stripes. And one of the things you have to sell people is hope.
mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to that, I was thinking to myself, that's interesting, because that's what the church does, right? That's what resurrection is. It's a hope, right? So the whole time I was listening to this, and the guy and Eric Hofer was he was an atheist, but he was sympathetic towards Christianity, according to his Wikipedia page. And so he wasn't denigrating religion per se, but he was talking about what functions in the human psyche when it comes to mass movements. And the reason it caught my eye was the book was because I had just had a conversation with somebody who said to me, you'll never catch me at a rally or some kind of, like big thing where people are politically get together for political motivational purposes, or any kind of fanaticism, like even big religious things. And I said, yeah, me either. What's with that? Like, I just would never go. Even if I thought it was a good thing, I don't want to go. There's something about the mob, you know? And then, I don't know, I always think Google must be listening to me, because it's like serendipitous, and I go run across some article, a day later. And I listened to the Hofer book, and I can't recommend it more. It's really challenging to listen to. And really simple. He was last week I got Jeremy to read his bio a little bit. He was a really interesting person, because he wasn't studied. He was, kind of a hobo type guy, and did a bunch of various different things. And I think the longest job he had was working as a longshoreman on the West Coast somewhere. And then he ended up teaching at a university for a short period of time, but he didn't like it. Anyway, all that to say, mass movements. Why did I start talking about that?
That's right.
I just wanted to say thank you to Upcycle. Again, thank you so much.
And I just ordered Berdyev's book that you recommended, and it's in English. It's called "The Origins of Russian Communism," and it was
Communism,
printed in
yeah, gorgeous it
1959. I
is.
found an old paperback version of it on Amazon. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
1959.
so
Mm.
I
that's
thought
interesting.
he was dead by then, but he must have been alive.
It may have been
Um,
published posthumously. I don't
maybe,
know.
maybe, because I know that he worked till the last day. I mean, he was literally like writing, and then he
Mm,
died.
mm,
He's an amazing guy.
mm,
Hmm.
But this book that you just ordered is really amazing because it shows um, he just knows the core of the Russian soul so well, being a Russian
Mhm.
mm,
himself, and he traces it down to you know, basically a millennia of orthodoxy and how people were so disillusioned with the state of the church by the end of the 19th century and
Mm.
the Tsar and everything that communists had to come up with some surrogate hope that looked so much like the truth, except
mhm,
Yep.
they take certain things out.
Yep.
And but the what's striking for me, it's kind of like tragic and comic at the same time, is that I believe these people like Lenin and Trotsky and others, they really believed it themselves. You almost like have to. I mean, the diabolical thing about it is that you have to really believe in the idol
Yeah.
to convince others of
yeah.
worshiping the idol. And they did believe. And they, if you ever watch some of the movies and read books that were about that period of time, the 1920s, and everything around the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917. When you see this incredible enthusiasm that looks so noble, so good on the outside,
Yep.
but yet when you actually read the facts about what was happening, you know, like the gulags were, rising on the rise, and all kinds of things, that happened in the 30s were all started by that, Red Terror.
Mhm.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's mind blowing.
I saw
But
a
that's, I guess, what
documentary.
happens.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was
I
just
was
going
just
to
going
say
to
I
say
saw a
that the
doc.
Red Terror arose from that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Red
yeah,
Terror.
yeah. No, there's a delay, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you. You reminded me. I saw a documentary that was made by the communists. It was a silent film, and it was made in the 30s, recounting the revolution. And like you said, it was
Mm,
this I mean, it was obviously very idealistic, optimistic view, and it was a very propagandistic film that was put together on how great this was and the triumph and all. It was, watching it now, sitting where we are now, looking back, it was like it was just really just hard to comprehend, honestly, because you can see the appeal, right? You can see it, and they are trying to renew hope. And you're right. Like from what I had read too, yeah, the church had become extremely corrupt, and was only the communist revolution was only prevented by the prayers of the saints. Like I think it was Saint Seraphim of Sarov. Like when he passed,
mhm.
shortly thereafter was the revolution, because he'd been praying, holding it off basically, but knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So
So it'll be interesting after you read it. Why don't you share some thoughts? It's
yeah,
interesting.
I'm really looking forward to it. There was a review. It says, I don't know why I love this book. As an American, I find Russia really difficult to fathom. This book is a fairly successful attempt by a Russian to make sense of Russia. So that sounds like a pretty
Hmm.
cool review. That sounds pretty great.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, I have to go, guys. It was so good to see you and chat a little.
You too.
It's a
Yeah.
real pleasure.
Thanks for
Thanks for
jumping
joining
in.
us. Thanks for
Sure,
telling us
sure.
about where you come from. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We'll see
Okay.
you next time.
I'll see you. See you. Yeah.
See ya. Good
Bye,
night.
Evgeny. Yeah. Do you want to go outside? Yeah. That's what I thought. Okay. I was getting I was getting the vibe.
Yeah, happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was doing low. Woof, woof.
Something going on out there. Gotta go bark
Yeah,
at.
she's got to go check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, that was a fun little trip
Yeah.
around the world.
That was great. And I got
Open World
introduced
Park.
to Berdayev. I've never heard of him. So that's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then The Origin of Russian Communism. That sounds like a fascinating book.
There's so many
Right
books.
up my alley.
There's so many books. Look what I got in the mail today. Can you see that one?
The Helion. The Saxon Gospel. I have not heard of that.
Saxon Gospel. It's written in, I mean, it's not Old English, translated.
Yeah.
Translation and commentary. And I saw it in the Jonathan Pajot, Martin Shaw conversation. I'm like, what? There's a Saxon Gospel?
Yeah, that sounds
I'm
pretty
reading
great.
it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I really want I don't know why, but I want to learn Anglo-Saxon so badly.
Wow.
If anybody listening could teach me Anglo-Saxon, please contact me.
Got to call Richard Rowland.
Yeah. I've been watching little how to learn Anglo-Saxon videos on YouTube.
Oh, there you go. Grab some, grab Beowulf and get after it.
I have it.
Nice.
I've got it with the
There you go.
Anglo-Saxon on one. So,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And the English on the other.
the
Yeah, the
Seamus
parallel
King
one.
translation.
Nice.
Yeah. I did. I finished my sweater. You noticed, Joy? Yep. This is it. I'm wearing it.
That's nice.
Yeah. My sweater.
From your sheep?
Yes, it's all hand spun.
Wow.
I'm wearing my sheep.
That looks comfy.
And now I'm doing these now. I'll show you. This is also new to me.
William just made a nice offer. William said, I can lead you on Anglo-Saxon. There is a good site.
Okay.
Wow.
Oops, another dog wants in. Hang on. So this is what I'm up to now. Oh, I'm knitting these Scandinavian mittens. Can you see that?
Wow. Yeah,
And then there's a different pattern on the other side. See?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's my first time doing these, so yeah, really loving these.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And when I get doing stuff like that, I'm just like, I'm like, my husband comes in, I'm like, are you hungry? He goes, yeah. And I go, throw food at him. And then I'm like, see ya.
Yeah.
I'm knitting.
Yeah. That's how my wife is right now with quilts. She's got the quilting bug, and she's making them for all of the new babies in our parish, and there's a lot of them. Did I tell you? I didn't tell you. We're up to 70 catechumens in our parish.
How many?
70.
Families?
70.
Families.
No, 70 catechumens total. Some are families.
Oh, catechumens.
70 catechumens.
How big is your church?
What's that?
How big is your church?
Oh, it holds more people than it should. I think we have probably between, I would say around 250 people, maybe 300 people.
The building.
Oh, the building?
Mm.
Oh, I don't know. I can show you a picture. Hold on.
Because it's in Salt Lake City, so I'm thinking Mormon Tabernacle or
It's not that. No, it's not. Actually, you know what it is? It's an old it's formerly a synagogue, actually. Hold on. I'm trying to find a whole Orthodox Church.
Well, I went to, while you're looking for that, when I went to Vancouver Island to visit a friend, I went to the church that took me in as a catechumen the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And It was in an old Baptist church, and the Baptist church had built a bigger church, and they had the old church down below, and that's where All Saints was. And when I got there, it was just packed with people. And when I started going on Zoom, started attending, they had maybe 40 people at that church.
Wow.
And when I got there, that what was it, 2 years later? 2 years later, Father Kyle said to me, Sherry, you opened the floodgates. I was the first new catechism.
Wow. Yeah.
And after that, and now they have, last count anyway, they had 70 families.
Wow.
And they were looking for a new building because they couldn't fit everybody in there.
Yeah, we're interesting. We have a lot of young people, and so we have a lot of transients. Like a lot of people come into Orthodoxy in our parish and then they move to, because they're young in their careers or young in their lives, and so they move around. But so like my priest said that he saw his list from 3 years ago for house blessings, and half the people on that list are gone now. So there's a lot of turnover, but we're getting a lot of new people coming in. So yeah, this is the inside of the church where I attend.
Nice.
It's beautiful. It really is. I'm very blessed to be there. Very grateful. But yeah, this is the parish where I go. Saints Peter and Paul Orthodox Church in Salt Lake City. So assassins, take note. That's where you'll find me.
Assassins.
So this is what it looks like from the outside. So yeah, it definitely
nice.
has the synagogue feel. It was built in the 1920s. And then I think in the 60s, a Christian church bought it, and like a Protestant Christian church, and they had it until the mid 70s, and then it converted over to an Orthodox church. There were a lot of people who were Protestants who all wanted to kind of become Orthodox at the same time, and they asked for a priest and found a priest and switched it from being a Protestant church to an Orthodox church. So
were the domes on it? Like the dome?
Good question.
Because I saw a Jewish synagogue in Berlin.
Yeah.
Had the huge domes on them, golden domes.
Yeah, I believe they were. Yeah, I think they're original to the building. I
didn't know that they had those on Jewish synagogues.
Yeah. Well, and it's all laid out in such a way that it works great for us. I think it speaks to the common roots, right?
Definitely.
So. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful place to go to church. I love it. Now this neighborhood is crazy. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on there, but the church itself is really nice.
Well, that's where a church should be, right in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep.
I'm good with that.
Got to heal the neighborhood, right? So
yeah, you got to shine your little light there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Like Saint Herman when he left. Isn't that a cool part of the story? They saw a beam of light go up from the island.
Oh yeah.
What's this?
Joy was asking me.
Who's heliocentric?
So he's the guy who's that Paul showcased, where he calls himself an atheist. He grew up very Protestant, or he grew up very fundamentalist, and actually was going to seminary and everything, and then everything kind of fell apart for him. So he says he's an atheist too, but he visits churches. He does a church audit, is what he calls it. So he goes to all these different churches in his area, and he just he does video production for a living. So he makes videos about his trips to these different churches, kind of does a church review. He calls it the atheist church review. That's what he calls it. So he goes and he's really entertaining. He's very humorous, but also he's had some really profound experiences in doing this. And he's always telling people, you should go to church. Right. So, and since he's starting getting more attention lately, and And there's a connection from his life and with someone in our parish, and so we're trying to get him out here for Pascha, hopefully, or maybe for Nativity even. We don't know, but we're trying to talk to come and visiting us. We'd like it a lot, but no, he had an interview. He did an interview with an Orthodox priest and a layperson who does. They have a channel. It's called the Orthodox Experience, I think. And he did an interview with them, and that was really interesting and good. But he goes in good faith. He's not trying to rip anything apart. He's just curious. He's just interested. So he goes to a bunch of different churches.
What does heliocentric mean?
That means the sun is the center of the solar system, not the Earth, as opposed to the geocentric, right, which was the view before that, kind of the Aristotelian view, and the medieval view before Copernicus. So I think that's kind of a nod to scientism, perhaps.
I threw another link in, people. I was letting it be done.
William, I just saw your comment. Jeremy, if you don't teach me Linux, you can't be a threat. I don't know what that means exactly. I don't get it. I get the first part. If you don't teach me Linux, you can't be a threat. To whom? I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. I missed your joke, William.
What is MTC TDS?
That I don't know.
That's secret Afriel language. And Old English.
Oh, where's the Orthodox revival on the logistic growth curve? Oh, yeah, and you had another one. Old English is like German, of course. Where is the Orthodox revival on? So I saw some people who have done some analysis of this. There's some problem. There definitely Orthodoxy is growing for the last 5 years. It's been growing. There is some problem with fall off in certain parishes. We have not experienced that. Like I will say, all of my godchildren are still active, still participating, still go every week, and that's the way it is for almost everyone who's been baptized in our parish. Is they come as, like, some people live far away, so they can't come every week, but they still come as often as they could. But and so it seems to be gaining a lot of momentum, and because we're not the only parish who have so many catechumens. So just to explain, a catechumen is like someone who it's like being betrothed to Christ. Like if baptism is the marriage, then catechumen is you've committed to joining the church, but it takes about anywhere from usually around a year of attending regularly and learning more. And then we have catechumen lessons where the priest or the deacon will teach the basics of Orthodoxy. And during that time, you're kind of just getting acclimated and learning what it means to live in an Orthodox community, because that's more important than learning about the theology. And but you start also learning the theology, and then you're baptized. So we have 70 people who are in that process of joining the church, essentially. The acronym of the soft response.
So we got
Jeremy is
that's that this is the acronym of the soft response, whatever that means.
I don't know what that is either. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that I've if I've crossed some problem, or if I've caused a problem with you, William, please forgive me. I don't mean to.
So, well,
that's all.
Doesn't look like anybody else is going to jump in. Sacred Order of Foolish Transparency.
Oh, is this from Grimm stuff? Is this Grizz stuff? Grizz language? Because I did use the assassins line of like, oh, I see the assassins.
Is that Grizz language?
Yeah, Grizz says, oh, I see the assassins have failed when he sees you. So.
Yeah. I mentioned to you today that I watched, it's Grizz's language. I mentioned to you today that I watched Civil War. If anybody
Yeah.
wants to watch a movie that is so disgusting. Man, it really, you
Yeah.
know, this is why I don't watch television. I literally never watch TV because, especially nowadays, like, I mean, even when I was younger, I didn't really like watching movies. But yeah. Oh, Stephen. Yeah. Enjoy.
Oh, okay. We lost Sherry. I don't know what happened there. Yeah. Yeah. Again, William, I apologize if I've caused a problem with you. I hope you'll forgive me. And I hope, we can talk about it. You know how to get a hold of me if you'd like. So,
I don't think you're disingenuous, so I think William just got trumped. You got
well,
trumped, William. By me, I mean.
yeah.
So, oh,
So
Tony said,
anyway, your outrage,
Tony, you saw it?
porn. Tell me about your outrage movie.
Well, I don't wanna wreck the movie if somebody wants to
Yeah,
watch it,
no.
but
Yeah.
I actually felt very saddened inside afterwards
Mm,
because here's the thing, I thought, well, I told you, I don't wanna ruin it for people because it's a new movie and if nobody's seen it. Um, yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah. Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to sign off.
okay.
So, we've
Yeah, I
been
should be getting to
going
bed
here
too.
for a couple hours.
Yeah, 2 hours
Yeah.
and 20 minutes. That's a good one. Well, this is
It's
always
a
a
good one.
pleasure. Yeah. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And,
And thanks to everyone for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have people joining and listening. And we're happy to be able to share the lives of the saints with you. And we're glad
I
you're
was
coming
really
along for the
happy that
ride.
we could do a long, like, single episode on St. Herman because there's just a lot of information, a lot of really great stories. So,
Well, I'd like to do the same thing
he's
with
very inspirational to me.
St. Gabriel. His is going to be a
Oh,
long
yeah.
one. I have a book on his
Mhm.
life, so I will take selections from the book and put it together.
Cool.
And we'll do that. I'd like to do St. Gabriel next week.
Okay.
Unless some other saint comes crashing through the door, which does happen occasionally.
Sometimes.
Occasionally,
All
a
right.
saint makes
Well,
it very obvious
thank
we need
you.
to talk about them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Good
Bye.
night.